Long before there was a Higgs-Boson on the PlayStation Network, there was a Samurai Dick on the Xbox Live. And that name was an amalgamation of my love for samurais and my name, Dick. Also, it was an homage to Samurai Jack, my favorite samurai-based animation at that time period. All these blended together because, like any American boy born or alive in the early 80s, I've been in love with samurais, ninjas, and Japan for as long as I can remember. From the Ninja Turtles, to Akira, to the movies of Akira Kurosawa, like playing when there was only 3 channels, because that's all we had, and the WB played old movies. So, I was raised on samurais and ninjas. And by the time I was in my late teens and early 20s, and I was out of the childish phases of things and starting to get into the more fact-based truth of things, I stumbled upon, as many people who are familiar with samurais, Bushido. If you're familiar with Musashi Miyamoto and his Book of 5 Rings, if you're familiar with samurais at all, you've probably heard the word Bushido. And Bushido is basically the set of books written and the code by which many samurai had based their conduct. And it extended out from there. So that's how I wound up being here, reading this out loud to the rest of you. I hope you enjoy it, and we're going to take this one book at a time. This is the foreword and the historical overview portion of the book, and the next video will be the beginning of the Hagakure. I hope you enjoy it, and I hope that this serves to help inspire you and lead you down a better path, because the Bushido, or the Way of the Samurai, is something that can translate into so many aspects of daily life and not just being a samurai. So follow along and hopefully you'll learn something. So first we're going to go into the author's foreword, and then we will talk about the historical overview, which will put into context the timing and setting for when this was written, and then we'll go on from there to the next book. And I will be reading the book word for word as it is written in the copy that I have. I will be doing a more in-depth dive into some of the things that I think and some of the opinions I have about things that are written in the book and how they apply to different areas. But that will be a different series. This is strictly the audiobook, and this will be the last time that you'll hear from me other than in the context of reading the book. Enjoy. Thank you. Minoru Tanaka speaks English better than anyone I have met in Japan. He has devoted himself single-mindedly to its study for many years, and now teaches the subject at a university near Osaka. At first, I attempted to help him with his studies, but when I found he was reading Chaucer and Beowulf in the original, I threw up my hands in despair and conceded. I could no longer be of assistance to him. So, he is the proper person to have translated the classic Hagakure, I believe. As a rule, one translates from a foreign language to his own tongue. In this instance, Tanaka-san has reversed the usual process. It is for this reason that I have stepped in, made some corrections, and occasionally rearranged the wording of his excellent translation. Some of the ideas in the book are so startling that it has not been easy to put them into workable English. Where possible, we have left unchanged the quaint and colorful expressions found in the original, rather than prosaically reproducing them to everyday English. I first met Tanaka-sensei in Kyoto in 1969. I was ambling down a side street off Kurosama-dori, on my way to the alley where the main entrance of the Tenrikyo Church community at which I was staying was located, when I heard a loudspeaker announce that English class was about to begin. Noticing that I was passing a small junior college, I spontaneously turned in the entrance and followed some students to the class. It turned out that Tanaka was teaching it, and we quickly became good friends. I casually invited him to visit me at the church, and he did so a few days later, at exactly the time we were about to have a formal tea ceremony for 3 charming female interpreters from Geneva. Tanaka joined us for what he sheepishly admitted was his first chanoyu, or tea ceremony. Subsequently, he came to visit me every Saturday, at which time we would drink tea while he helped me with my Japanese and I attempted to aid him with his excellent English. Years later, he visited me in America and we worked together to bring the Hagakure to the English-speaking public, all because of a well-timed loudspeaker announcement. It is my belief that it is important for Westerners to understand the seemingly strange concepts of Bushido, not only as a guide to events of the past, but as a primer for understanding the Japanese business mentality of today. It is hard for Westerners to believe that Japanese employees will not take vacations because of loyalty to their employers. Such loyalty to the large corporation borders on the fanatic, and it is a common occurrence to hear poorly paid subordinates joyfully sing company songs and chant slogans before work begins each day. This is not done cynically. The employer occupies a paternalistic position in relation to his employees. Seldom is anyone fired. In the case of an outright bungling, or even dishonesty, a face-saving excuse may be fabricated and the offending one transferred to another position. And employees, even highest executives, do not quit their jobs or look for better paying opportunities. Employment is usually of the lifetime variety, with the employer, just as with the lord in medieval times, taking a deep interest in the employee's personal life, family, children, etc. One may rightly say the vice presidents of today are the loyal samurai retainers of the clan, in this case the corporation, who will give themselves unstintingly for the common, not the personal cause. It is partially because of this two-sided loyalty and the strength it imparts that Japan rose from a bombed-out, defeated nation to a position of envied affluence in less than 30 years. This way of thinking is completely contrary to what we know in the West, and I believe Tanaka's translation will enable many Westerners to better understand what they are competing against. It will be interesting to the reader to note the many Zen Buddhist terms that are used in this book. Facing death every day, the samurai warriors had to go beyond life and death in order to live with courage and equanimity, and the practical teaching and practice of Zen enabled them to do so. Royalty was attracted to the Shingon Buddhism with its ritual and trappings. The philosophically minded gravitated to Tendai, and the common person naturally followed the way of devotion, Shin Buddhism. But the samurai, not interested in words and speculations, found the meditation and 24-hour awareness of Zen invaluable in his calling as warrior knight and made full use of it. It is necessary for the reader to abstain from judging while reading this sometimes strange book. I suggest it be read as the important document it is, without praise or condemnation, the praise probably coming from those involved in the martial arts and similar groups. There is little reason to doubt that the Hagakure will play an important role in the future of Japan as it has in the past, and our leaders had better learn to comprehend it. If there is any awkwardness of language, please put the blame on me. I have been loath to needlessly tamper with the native mode of expression. As written by Justin Stone. Historical Overview. The shogunate rule from 1603 to 1867 was a period of peace and political stability. In order to preserve its power, the shogunate government maintained a closed-door policy toward all foreign countries. Under the shogunate system, each clan was relatively independent but was required to pay allegiance to a central government of shogunate. Within each clan, the lord and his samurais composed the leading class. As a ruling group, they held dominion over the farmers, manufacturers, merchants, and craftsmen. The author of Hagakure, Tsunetomo Yamamoto, was a member of the powerful Namashima clan. As a youth, Yamamoto attended on his master, Lord Mitsushige Namashima, For 30 years, Yamamoto devoted his life to the service of his lord and clan. His service varied from being a page boy to a highly respected samurai. Then, on the death of Mitsushige Namashima in 1700, Yamamoto renounced the world and retired to a hermitage in the mountains. 10 years later, Tsurutomo Toshiro visited him and became his close friend and disciple. For a period of 7 years, from around 1710 to 1716, they lived together in the mountain retreat. During this time, Toshiro recorded verbatim what his master said to him at random. Yamamoto forbade Toshiro to publish the talks that were later to be called Hagakure, which literally means hidden behind the leaves. The reason he forbade the publication was that he knew his teachings were too radical and excessive for the then peaceful world. Also, his ideas were not altogether consistent with the then prevalent official study of the teachings of Confucius, who advocated peace and order. During the period that Hagakure was being recorded, peace within the country enabled the people to devote time to cultural matters. Even the samurais, who were expected to be warriors, tended to forget their experiences in the civil wars. They began to neglect their military practices and their mastery of the Bushido, the way of the samurai, and gave more and more of their time and attention to personal accomplishments rather than to the military arts and the traditional loyal service of their lord. They did this knowing that they were expected to be efficient bureaucrats in the service of the lord and clan, and, as a result, tended to become tender and effeminate. They began to act out of their own self-interest. No definite ideal prevailed among the samurais at this time. During this period, Yamamoto came to the conclusion that respectability and discretion were based on man's preference of life to death. In other words, he saw cowardice and fear as the basis for all the various kinds of humanitarian ideas and philosophies. Regardless of ideas and philosophies, he suggested that the samurai throw away all self-imposed limitations caused by the choice of life rather than death. In his talks, he wanted every samurai to become a Superman. He wanted supermen who were capable of gaining great power, not for their own self-interest, but for the interests of the clan. He wanted supermen who were capable of operating effectively for the solidarity of the clan. In spite of Yamamoto's prohibition, the original writings of Hagakure were secretly copied by hand. They were then circulated among the so-called awakened samurais. Yet, the book was kept secret from the general public until it was eventually published in 1906. The publication influenced many Japanese, particularly generals and officers and others engaged in the control of military power. The 80 years or so from the restoration of imperial rule in 1867 to the surrender of Japan to the Allied forces in 1945 was a period of continual warfare for Japan. This warfare was based upon the economic development and military expansion of the country. During this period, the relation between the lord and his samurais changed into a similar relation between the emperor and his trusted soldiers. During the last stage of the Pacific War, the kamikaze fighter pilots, made up mostly of students, rationalized their action of self-sacrifice through the often quoted passage of Hagakure, "I have found the essence of Bushido, to die." When the Empire of Japan surrendered to the Allied powers in 1945, Hagakure was burned because it was considered to be an ideological war criminal. Though the book was burned, its spirit still survived. It is the energy from this spirit that has enabled the Japanese people to revive and rapidly develop their economy and national prestige. Today, there exists a general belief that a powerful force, militarism based upon the so-called economic imperialism, is again reviving in Japan. The very existence of this belief, be it valid or not, accounts for the recent revival of Hagakure among the Japanese people. Since the end of the Pacific War, 4 different editions of Hagakure have been published in Japan. There is no doubt that Hagakure has come to be read by more and more Japanese as a book of today. Indeed, one of the latest editions has emphasized the up-to-datedness of Hagakure as a book showing how individual members of an organization should cooperate with one another in a common cause. According to this edition, the basic pattern of the Japanese society has remained the same. The present clans take the form of Japanese business company. The executive of the company, or often the company itself, is the lord. The businessmen are the present-day samurais who literally give themselves to their clans. Hagakure is a book for those interested in discovering the truth about Japan and the Japanese people. It will certainly give the reader a deeper insight into the traditional Japanese mentality, as written by Minoru Tanaka in Osaka, Japan. Thank you once again for joining me, and that was the historical overview and introduction as written by Justin Stone and the translation of the historical overview by Minoru Tanaka. In the next chapter, we will begin the Hagakure as written by Tsunetomo Yamamoto, and that book is comprised of 11 books, which we will split into 11 videos, as well as the next video, for a total of 12 videos in the rest of this series. So I will see you in the next video. Thank you for watching. Love you, bye!